So let's talk about space. And I know that when we're thinking about somebody who is going to talk about space with you, you're probably not imagining someone who looks like me. And that is actually exactly the reason why I am here with you today. I was 7 years old when I first said the words, "One day I will travel to space." However, I realized very early on that the reaction to those words depends and varies a lot on who the child is and what that child looks like. Because when I saw some of my own classmates, when I saw some of my own friends, when I saw my own brother saying the wildest things, all they ever heard was, "That's amazing. Yes, you can. Absolutely. Keep dreaming. You can do anything." But when I said those words, the reaction was always a mix of laughter, of ridicule, humiliation, and at that young age, I had to realize something very important. And that is that simply wanting to be more, simply wanting to be better, is going to be received very differently depending on who you are. And to be a child that realizes that is something very difficult. But I also realized something else at the same time, and that was, I didn't care. And I think a big reason for that was my mother. Because my mother always wanted an education. My mother always wanted her own career. But my mother had to be a very traditional type of mother, a traditional type of wife. She got pregnant at 16 years old. She got married at 17 years old. And she was always told, when the kid grows up a little bit more, you can go back to school. But of course, that never happened, because there were 4 of us. Eventually, thanks to her support, thanks to her encouragement, and thanks to the fact that ever since I was born, my mom did not baby talk me, but rather, as a baby, told me, "You are going to get an education." That was drilled into my mind, and it was the only thing I wanted more than anything else. Eventually, on full rides, I was able to make it to UCLA to study a career in electrical engineering. Shortly after that, I got my first engineering job as a NASA intern. Shortly after that, I was renewed 4 times. I was told by my boss that the last thing they wanted to do was lose me and my work. So I was offered a full-time job as a NASA engineer 6 months before my college graduation. Thank you. While I was there, I realized this is going pretty good. Let me see what else I can do and how much further I can push this. So I decided to apply for a mission to space. And when I tell you that I decided to apply for a mission to space, what I mean is I was getting ready to be rejected for my first mission to space. However, after a process of 3 years, after multiple essays, after multiple interviews, after multiple years, I am told that I am now a finalist. There are 5 of us left out of 7,000 applicants from all over the world. And when I tell you that was the most grueling week of my entire life, I broke out in hives everywhere in my body, from the stress, from the nerves. And I covered that up with as much makeup as I could Because I said to myself, I am not about to let them think at this moment, after everything I've gone through, that I can't handle going to space because of an interview. That same day, they sent me an email telling me that they wanted to talk to me that very next day. I was selected, and I was told that as soon as we finished my interview, they knew already. But what's it actually like to have that experience? What's it actually like to be able to see the planet for the first time? It's the most shocking thing you'll ever live. It is the most beautiful thing you will ever live. But it also changes you so fundamentally that you will never, ever be the same person again. And in my case, it was even more difficult to go through that experience. Because in doing so, I achieved something I could have never even dreamed about. I became the first Mexican woman in space and the youngest American woman in space to do so. Thank you. And it is my honor in this very moment to let you know, before I walk off the stage, let's just put it out there. I've seen the planet. It is round. I'm sorry. I saw it with my own eyes. But what is it that happens when you're able to actually have that experience? There's something called the overview effect. The overview effect is a psychological, cognitive shift in perception that happens when you're able to look at the planet from the outside. And they started to notice when the first astronauts started traveling to space. But what actually happens? You start to feel a need, a necessity, a genuine desire to help other people, to help the planet, to help your own community. Really, it varies by person. It depends on the things that matter most to them. It depends on the things they've already lived, they've already experienced, they've already struggled with prior to this experience. But what does not change is the fact that it happens. So what is it that happened to me? That young Mexican woman realized how absolutely, incredibly privileged she is. Because everything I've been able to do, everything I've been able to accomplish, yes, I've worked hard, yes, I've cried, yes, I've bled, yes, I have been on my knees begging for it to stop, for it to end. But I've had access to something at the end of the day. And that is, I always had access to an opportunity that was going to allow me to get past this. Always. I always did. And when I went back to Mexico for the first time after this experience, and I had a little girl the same age I was when I first said those words, hug my legs, they tell me that she is coming from an orphanage. She lost her parents. She has nothing else to live for. And she is asking me, how can I do what you've done? And I know that the real and true answer is in your own country, you can't. And when I realized that in that moment, I realized that my mission was never actually going to space. My mission was actually coming back and doing something about that. So what have I actually done about that? My mission was in 2022. And when I first started with this process, I was told, what you want to do is absolutely impossible. You should just go back. And I said, no, I'm not going back. Because I truly believe we can do this. So in 2 years, we approved a change to the Mexican Constitution in Congress that is going to prioritize space activities for the nation for the first time in history. It is going to create all of the necessary laws so that Mexico can develop their own space infrastructure so that they can grow their own space agency. I was able to set up the very first space education training programs of all Latin America, and this that you see right here, this is Mexico. Those spacesuits were designed by a Mexican company with Mexican technology. When I reached out to them, they said to me, when we started this company, we didn't know who would ever buy our spacesuits. And I said, well, obviously me. And this red dirt that we see right here, this is the soil that the tequila grows in. So it was actually very easy for us to recreate Mars in the state of Jalisco, thanks to our beautiful national drink. Thank you so much.